Is inclusivity the key to the survival of multilateral organizations? India's G20 presidency has paved the way. It has demonstrated an inclusive and decisive leadership in a world marked by deep polarization. India's role as the G20 president has become a symbol of inclusivity. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi aptly said, this G20 has evolved into the people's G20 with a strong commitment towards inclusivity. India focused on core areas such as digital infrastructure and its efforts to integrate the African Union into the G20 fold. This underscores India's dedication to global cooperation. By championing inclusivity, India has not only set a global precedent for all multilateral forums, but also for countries hosting them. And despite key absences, India secured a joint declaration. India's G20 presidency has set the precedent, but the question that looms large is whether others will follow suit. Hello and welcome. I'm Molly Gambhir and you are watching GravitasPlus. The survival of multilateralism, the very essence of global cooperation, hinges on one fundamental principle, and that's inclusivity. Now, if there is one thing that perfectly encapsulates this spirit, it is India's mantra as the host of the G20 summit. The mantra of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. It carries a profound philosophy. It translates to the world is one family. Just let that sink in for a moment. This philosophy essentially urges us to unite as a global family, transcending borders, languages, ideologies. It's a powerful reminder that our destinies are intertwined. Cooperation is not just an option, it's an imperative. This concept may sound idealistic, and it is challenging. The world is realizing the need for a shift away from GDP-centric view of the world. The G20 has set a remarkable precedent in this regard. In a world marked by the diverse cultures, economic challenges, political systems, inclusivity is not just a buzzword. It is the linchpin of our collective survival. And so here's how India's example shines bright. In more than 60 cities of India, more than 200 meetings took place. These meetings have in turn helped trade and tourism in these cities and promoted infrastructure development. India proposed that the African Union be granted permanent membership of the G20. Prime Minister Modi had invited the head of the African Union to take his seat as a member of the G20. The African Union's inclusion in G20 was among India's key priorities under its presidency. And these are significant steps towards inclusivity. And when we dive into the topic of inclusivity, it's important that we talk about inclusive goals. Let's just break this down step by step. Climate change. Inclusive climate action, you see, entails two critical components: mitigating the impact of climate change on the most vulnerable, ensuring that benefits and burdens are equitably distributed. Let me repeat that for you: equitably distributed. And I say so because climate change affects some communities more than the others. Developing countries are often more vulnerable to natural disasters like droughts, storms, floods, which impact them differently as compared to their more developed counterparts. Trade flows. Let's take the example of the Ukraine war. It led to a surge in energy prices in 2022. Maintaining uninterrupted energy flows, therefore, becomes important. Beyond causing civilian casualties and extensive damage within Ukraine, the war reverberated far beyond its borders, and the repercussions were felt across dozens of countries. Their currencies experienced sharp devaluations against the US dollar, resulting in increased import costs. And this, in turn, triggered a surge in commodity prices, compounded by the global recovery efforts from the COVID-19 pandemic. And as economies emerged from lockdowns and embarked on massive economic stimulus programs, pent-up demand created swift and substantial price hikes. And the war further magnified these existing trends, leaving no corner of the global economy untouched. And this is where the role of multilateral groupings comes into play. You see, under India's G20 presidency, world leaders agreed on the human suffering and adverse effects as a result of the war, particularly when it comes to global food security, energy security, supply chains. There is a recognition of the fact that the least developed countries that are still in the process of recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic have also been significantly impacted by the ongoing conflict. Number 3, digital inclusivity. You see, technology stands as another pivotal domain where India has illuminated the path to inclusivity. If the goal is genuine transformation, multilateral institutions must embrace inclusivity. Historically, technological advancements have not distributed their benefits equitably across all sections of the society. However, India, over the past few years, has demonstrated how technology can be harnessed to bridge these disparities. India has made remarkable strides in ensuring digital financial inclusivity. Initiatives like DigiLocker, Aadhaar-based services, e-governance portals, also digital payment systems, have significantly improved accessibility, transparency, efficiency in public service delivery. And these digital platforms have brought services closer to the people, helping transcend barriers and empowered individuals across diverse segments of the society. India took this vision of digital inclusivity forward with its G20 presidency. G20 leaders stressed on promoting international cooperation, on having further discussions on international governance for artificial intelligence. The G20 leaders called for a secure, trusted, accountable, and inclusive digital public infrastructure. Put simply, digital public infrastructure will empower citizens and also enable digital inclusion, improve lives. These are all key to improvement in emerging economies. And if multilateral organizations are to stay relevant, just like the G20 declaration, they must work towards enabling inclusive, open, fair, and non-discriminatory digital economy. In the end, the G20's inclusivity is not just about economic power. It's about acknowledging that the fate of our planet and its people is interconnected. In a globalized world, no nation can shield itself entirely from the consequences of global issues like climate change, pandemics, wars, or economic crises. And under India's G20 leadership, there is a realization that to tackle these monumental challenges, you need more than economic might. You need a diversity of perspectives and solutions. Until recently, there was considerable debate surrounding the G20's relevance and the effectiveness of multilateral forums. However, following the G20 New Delhi Declaration, they have shown that it works. The G20 has been instrumental in coordinating responses to financial crises, setting global economic policies, and addressing pressing issues. Inclusivity has allowed countries with different interests and priorities to find common ground and forge solutions that benefit everyone. Now, the world eagerly anticipates how these responses will translate into action on the ground.